The Michael Jackson movie is having an identity crisis, and that leads it to being one of the weirdest movies that we have ever gotten. I don't need to tell you who Michael Jackson is. You guys already know he's the king of pop. He's the greatest artist of all time. A biopic is supposed to give you a picture of a person's life and like tell the story of how he rose to fame, and it should also include the fall as well, right? And those controversial moments. And they do a weird Michael will return an Avengers Doomsday type like teaser at the end of this movie. I'm not gonna spoil things that actually did happen in real life. You know Michael's story. But even if it wanted to avoid those controversies and allegations, those very serious claims against Michael Jackson, and just focused on his music, I think this movie does a very poor job of that too. It wants to start from the beginning. And so we see Michael at like 10 years old in the Jackson 5, and we pick up with the pressure that his father, Joe Jackson, has been putting on the boys. And that's like the only emotional through line of the story. This movie doesn't show Michael the artist. Like if we just said we're going to focus on Michael the creative, right? We see him make the album Off the Wall, his first solo album. And he just says that he wants to go on his own away from his brothers and just make music for himself, where he has full creative control. But we don't even explore who Michael is as a creative person. We don't understand the type of music he wants to make or the type of legacy he wants to leave behind. This movie is just Michael made music. This is how he did it. We don't go into why he left the Jackson 5. We don't go about Jermaine leaving Motown. We don't explore even the creative aspects and challenges that he faced. We just kind of just show play by play, hey, this is what happened around the time when he released this song. And this movie is best summarized as just like a video game in a weird way, where it's like the big action moments, the gameplay moments is the songs, is the concerts, is the recreation of iconic music videos. And then the cutscenes are just the moments of dialogue we have to get us to that point. There was a point in this film, I think like the first 30 minutes of this movie, there's some sort of music playing the entire time. Even the background is just some sort of instrumental version of a Jackson 5 song or a Michael Jackson song, because there's no real dialogue of any substance outside of Joe just being like, y'all gonna be musicians, y'all gonna get us out of Gary, Indiana, you're gonna be something, Michael, you just need to keep putting in the work. And it's like, okay, if we're going to go out of our way, right, and not show the entirety of Michael's life, in that case this movie should have taken the Hamilton approach. And what I mean is the musical Hamilton, it's a retelling of historical events but through a fantasy lens, right? The entire cast of Hamilton are usually black or brown actors, and we don't focus too much on the bad parts of those people's lives. Like Thomas Jefferson is one of the worst people to ever walk the face of the earth. He's a slave owner, he's a terrible person, but Daveed Diggs makes him funny, makes it fun. And we all have like this suspension of disbelief. We're watching Hamilton, we're like, hey, we're kind of just here to have a good time. Yes, this is retelling some things in history that actually did happen. By and large, it is an act of fiction, right? This Michael movie could have worked the same way, where you can just say, hey, we're going to suspend our disbelief. Most of this is just a work of fiction. I think of the movie A Better Man, right? The main character is a freaking monkey, but it's still a fairly accurate telling of Robbie Williams' life, right? And it still manages to do something really fun and really different while still having the title as a musical biopic. This movie is more of a concert film, akin to like the Eras tour for Taylor Swift in a weird way, where it's like we're gonna have some interviews with the artist, right? The typical, we have the artist talk about the music and their process, and then we cut to a song like 2 seconds later. This has the pacing of a concert film more than it does an actual movie. And that's the weirdest thing about this film, is that Michael is so focused on showcasing the music and showcasing Jafar as a dancer, and he embodies Mike, and Jafar gives an incredible performance. It's so strange how all of the actors in this movie do a phenomenal job, even though they aren't given a lot to work with. Jafar is able to embody Michael in a way that is kind of scary. By the time you get to the end, he's performing bad. And those zoom out shots where we don't really see his face, you just like, I'm watching Michael sing and dance, right? And it's honestly uncanny. It's really impressive on how they're able to blend Michael's voice and Jafar's voice and like make something that is slightly different. Like, it's not a one to one. He doesn't look 100% like Michael, but the essence is there, you know? And I think this movie, if it just slowed down and focused on, say, Off the Wall, or focused on the Thriller album, right? And we at least see Michael as a creative and focus on him becoming the king of pop, this movie would have hit a lot harder, in my opinion. I think the biggest misstep is that this movie just wants to basically play it so safe, and that's the crazy thing to me, is that Michael Jackson never played it safe. This is almost anti everything Michael stood for as an artist, right? He always wanted to push the boundary and push the envelope and try something new and challenging and like really surprise people and shock people. So even in the wake of, again, this movie doesn't focus on the bad parts of Michael's life, even in focusing on the good, we don't even give time to focus on that. Michael Jackson movie is devoid of any real substance or character for Michael Jackson as a person. In a movie that doesn't really want to take time and address his life as a whole, that's fine. I understand to an extent. But even in the period of time that we're focusing on, show how he becomes the king of pop. Show the challenges that he faced, the competitive era of the 80s, right? He even says in this film, and he said in real life, if I don't act, God is going to give my ideas to Prince. Show that tenacity, that drive. What makes him stand out? What made him such a genius? What made him become this global icon? The movie takes no time to say this is what makes Michael special. The movie just tells us that Michael is special and then proceeds to be a hodgepodge of music videos cobbled together to make a feature-length film. Unfortunately, that just isn't enough for me and probably a lot of critics of this movie. If you love the music, great. If you wanted any sort of narrative through line or like character work showcasing this incredibly talented and very troubled and problematic human being, this movie just doesn't pull it off, unfortunately. It's a fun time if you're just there to dance and jive to the incredible soundtrack of the Jackson 5 and Michael Jackson, you know, some of the greatest music of all time. It's a fun time. It's a great watch. It's an easy experience, but as a biopic, it fails on basically every single level. And then as a fantasy reimagining of Michael's life, right? A reminiscent of the good old days. Again, Hamilton-esque with how we want to treat this and view this as a piece of media. It also doesn't give you enough to chew on and enough to think about. It's just like watching the highlights. You ever watch an NBA game, right? A basketball game, and it's 2 hours long, but the highlights are like 10 minutes and you just see the best parts. That's essentially what this movie is. It's just the biggest and brightest hits of Michael Jackson's life with a little bit of drama as well, you know, the Pepsi incident and all that stuff. But outside of that, it just gives you really nothing else. And that's very disappointing because, again, the actors in this movie did a phenomenal job. I think Antoine Fuqua, the director, this movie is well directed, you know, it's well acted. It's really just a script issue, and throughout all the reshoots and the Jackson Estate's involvement, I just think that they stripped this movie of all creativity. I understand, again, Michael is a very controversial figure. He lived a very complicated life, and there are probably some things that they didn't want to tackle. I think they should have. I think they should have gone all the way and committed and told the entirety of this man's life, the good and the bad, with no holds barred, right? But even in doing so, they could have still had something inspired in this project, and they just didn't. And this movie fails in almost every conceivable way, unless you were just there to listen to some of the greatest music ever made.